together, meaning we don't follow the works of previous times. Thank you.
Caesar, yes. Caesar, yes.
I'm done. Sorry, I never lowered my hand.
Okay, sawa. So I think that's a discussion we can still have again when we come back to school. We can have a debate on that.
Yes.
Yes. So the class rep can organize us into two groups, and we debate whether we need to have a return of the animal skin as part of our clothing. Yes. So from the charts, I can see someone is saying you can't compare skin to Versace. Another one is talking about like a leopard skin. What about the leopard skin? Then that is Brian Nganga is saying that. Then Lekishon is saying they are not flexible. I love who Charles Mburu is saying when it dries up, it is very hard. Okay, so we've said we'll debate that when we get back to school, God willing. So which are the other benefits of fire? Which are the other benefits of fire? Not benefits of fire, sorry. We are describing the cultural and economic practices of early human beings. I've talked about covering themselves with animal skills. Edwin?
Man ate cooked food. Man ate cooked food.
Yes, man ate cooked food since fire had been invented. Very good. Any other? Yes, Mwanzia. Mwanzia, yes.
Man started practicing some art and craft. Man started practicing art.
So we are told man started drawing pictures of animals that he intended to go and hunt in the field. So we talk about rock art, very good. And remember in class we discussed the importance of rock art. So it is important to take note also, because as a separate question, you could be asked on the importance of rock art. We are still describing the economic practices of early human beings during the Middle Stone Age. Caesar, yes?
Madam,
yes, Caesar.
Can you say that rock art, the paintings, because of one drawing what he wanted to kill that day or in a day, can we say that man started having belief in some supernatural being?
Yes,
but
magic? Yeah, he started having some belief in supernatural being or magic, because he believed that when he went to the field, he was going to kill those animals. So that is now, when we look at importance of rock art, then we can talk about that.
Yes.
Sawa Caesar, we can talk about that. Yes, but as we look at now in terms of describing his culture, then it is better to just talk about he started practicing rock art, or he started painting on the walls of caves, pictures of animals that probably he intended to kill in the hunting grounds.
Yes.
Any other description? Any other description? Aaron, yes. Aaron, yes. Remember, we gave some pointers. I remember in our class discussion, we gave some pointers that we use when we are describing the culture of man, be it in the Old Stone Age, in the Middle Stone Age, or in the New Stone Age. So I hope you still have that summary that we discussed in terms of which points do you describe when you're looking at the cultural and economic practices of early human beings. So allow me to take us through that in terms of our marking scheme. So we have one that, so we are describing the culture of man during the Mesolithic period, or what we refer to as the Middle Stone Age. So we are told that man made more advanced tools. Man made more advanced tools, which were smaller, lighter, and sharper. Man made more advanced tools, which were smaller, lighter, and sharper. And remember in our class discussion, we talked about in this period that man made tools that were known as Sanguan Tools. And these tools, we agreed, they were found in Sango Bay in Tanzania. And again, remember in our discussion, we talked about Acheulean tools. And we agreed at some point that the Sanguan tools and the Acheulean tools may be one and the same tools, only that The Sanguan Tools were found at Sango Bay in Tanzania, and the Herculean tools were found at St. Hercules in France. So man made more advanced tools, which were smaller, lighter, and sharper. Then they wore animal skins. Remember, in the old Stone Age, we said man made Oldowan tools. Then in the new Stone Age, we said man made microlithic tools. And we even went ahead and discussed the characteristics of the microlithic tools. And in the old Stone Age, we discussed the uses of stone tools, or we can say in general terms, the uses of the Herculean tools, because the Herculean tools were stone tools. So are we together up to that point? Are we together?
Yes.
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 So next is, okay.
Yeah.
Next is they wore animal skins. They wore animal skins, waist belts, and necklaces. They wore animal skins, waist belts, and necklaces. Then you can also talk about them painting themselves with red oak and oil, painting themselves with red oak and oil. Then they ate cooked food that comprised of meat, vegetables, fish, insects, eggs, and fruits. So here is where Caesar will now talk about them supplementing their diet. They ate cooked food that comprised of meat, vegetables, fish, insects, eggs, and fruits. Remember, in the old Stone Age, we said they ate raw meat or raw food. Then man started living in caves and rock shelters, and we've distinguished between a cave and a rock shelter. Man started living in caves and rock shelters, and then we also talk about him securing the entrances of caves. And at this point, I think it is important that we discuss that, because as a separate question, the examiner can ask you how the entrances of the caves were secured. So how were the entrances secured? How were the entrances of the cave secured? Yes, Edwin.
By placing animal skins covering the entrances.
So they covered the entrances with animal skins. Very good. Aaron?
They lit fire at the entrance caves to keep away dangerous animals.
Very good. So number one, we have said they covered with animal skins. They covered the entrances with animal skins. Then secondly, the entrances of caves were secured by lighting fire at night. So they either covered the entrances or they lit fire at night. So that is how they were secured. Huka, yes, I can see your hand is up.
By using like thorns or like branches of trees with thorns
to cover the entrances. So do we have evidence to that? Remember, we said history deals with facts, huh? And we said for it to be considered as a historical fact, then it must have recorded evidence. So do we have recorded evidence of that? Huka, yes. Where did you read that? That they use thorns.
I just
yeah, so that is good. It's good because that is what, again, history gives us that intellectual capacity. So yes, it maybe that may be another way that they could have secured, but we have evidence that they secured either through lighting of fire or through covering it with animal skin. Because remember, in class we said for it to be considered as a historical fact, then it must have recorded evidence. So are we clear there, Huka?
yes.
Okay, yes. Aaron, yes. Aaron, yes. Aaron, are you aware your hand is up?
I forgot to light.
Okay, so please, once you raise your hand, please remember to lower it. So if there's no any other question, then we can move from there. Then they lived in groups of about 50 people with a leader. They lived in groups, and remember I said when it comes to giving figures or giving examples, then you must give them not correct. So at this point, if you are not sure of the number of people they live, then it is just safe to talk about man living in groups. Then they painted pictures of animals they hunted on walls of caves where they lived. They painted pictures of animals they hunted on walls of caves where they lived. So there is where we're talking about rock art. Then developed a language of communication. Then main activity was hunting and gathering. So in the Middle Stone Age, man still hunted and gathered as his main activity. Then man also practiced fishing. Aaron, you want to say something?
No.
Okay. So man also practiced fishing. Then we have invention of fire was during the Middle Stone Age. So at this age, or at this in this period, is when man invented fire. So please, during our free time, I'd request that again, go look at the Old Stone Age and also go look at the Middle Stone Age, because this time round the examiner talked about the Middle Stone Age. You never know, come the next exam, the examiner might talk about still on the Middle Stone Age, or talk about the New Stone Age, or ask you a question on the Older Stone Age. So remember, as we discussed in class, we discussed advantages of living in caves, disadvantages of living in caves, because remember we've said that man continued to live in rock shelters and also caves. So please again, look at what are the advantages of living in caves and what are the disadvantages of living in caves. Again, we've talked about man living in groups. It is important again that you look at why man used to live in groups. Why is it that man lived in groups? So are we clear there? Are we clear?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so that was
Yeah.
question 20. That was question was on agriculture. Remember, agriculture is a topic that we discussed in class. We first looked at introduction. We went and discussed agriculture. So in discussing agriculture, we started by defining what agriculture is. And let me just allow me. I wanted to share the screen. I'm not able to share the screen. Just allow me to see if Mr. Odor can sort me out on that. So who's this? Who's there? Is Nick there? Yes, Nick. Please be discussing advantages and disadvantages of living in caves as I sort out, as I request Mr. Odor to sort me out so that I'm able to share the screen, because I can see I'm not able to share the screen. So Nick, are you there?
Okay.
Yes, discuss
I'm here.
advantages and disadvantages of living in caves, and also discuss why early man lived in groups. Let me sort out that.
Okay. So we'll start off by reasons as to why early man lived in groups, and then we can proceed to the second question, the advantages and disadvantages of living in caves. So I'll expect people to raise their hands. Reasons why man lived in groups. Elizaphan?
For moral support.
Moral support. Sean? Kenyatta, you're breaking. Or you can just type the answer in the chat section and we can read it out to the rest. Ephraim.
Locating the animal was easy.
Yeah, so locating the animals they were supposed to hunt was easier. Since we have more eyes, obviously the work becomes easier and you can locate them much faster. You can see that the teacher is the co-host. Maybe she has sorted out the issue.
So as I share the screen, just finish up on that discussion.
The advantages and disadvantages of living in caves. Also, just section you can see for progression and Kenyatta's answer. To share the resources. I think that's all on reasons as to why man lived in groups. So advantages and disadvantages of living in caves. We start off with the advantages. Anybody?
People have forgotten the advantages of caves, living in caves.
Yatani.
It sheltered them from rain, heat, and wind.
So for Hash, yes, I think it was Ephraim or anybody else could take an answer to the question. Advantages as to why man lived in caves. And then you can move on to the disadvantages. Yeah, that was Malcolm.
Yes.
Edwin. So, okay, we have been given shelter for when they're experiencing harsh weather conditions.
So Nick, thank you. So allow me to pick up from there. So advantages of living in caves as shelters by early man. Remember we said one, caves provided protection from wild animals. So while in the caves, they will be protected from the wild animals. Then we said caves also offered warmth or protection from cold. So in the caves, they would protect themselves from the cold that they would have been exposed to if they were not in the caves. Then also for companionship. So caves, while the early human beings lived together in the caves, then they would offer each other companionship. Then the disadvantages of living in caves, we said the caves could collapse over them. Then we also talked about in the caves, wild creatures do we have in the caves? Which wild creatures do we have in the caves?
Scorpions.
Scorpions, poisonous snakes, and all that. Insects. Then in the caves, human enemies could easily attack them. In the caves, human enemies could easily and floods. So in as much as we've said one of the advantages is that the caves will provide warmth, but during the cold season, then the caves will be very cold. Inside the caves will be very, very cold. So the caves were exposed to cold. They're also exposed to wind, and at times the caves could flood. And this was a danger to the animals. So those were the advantages and disadvantages of caves. You can do further reading and see if you can get additional points on that. So our next question, 21, I've said is on agriculture. So I'm now able to share the screen. Thanks, Mr. Odor, for that assistance. So I was saying, and I hope everyone, are you all able to see my screen?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So
yes.
So like I've said, our question 21, okay. Our question 21 is on agriculture. So it is important that we define certain terms, and we'll start by defining what agriculture is. Remember, I told you, anytime you get a question, then don't just go straight to describe, to answering that question, or don't just answer that question and move on. As part of the revision, try to see which other related question can I get from this particular area. So I would like us to define certain terms. Just allow me to write on the screen then what I want us to define. So one is agriculture. Then the next time I wish that we define is Neolithic period, which of course that one we've already defined earlier. Period. Then we also define agrarian system. So who will start us off? Caesar, I can see your hand is up, and please, let's not keep having the same hands. Let's have different people speak also and try so that our discussion can be constructive. Alvin, yes. So Alvin,
Yes.
I'll give you the chance. So start us off. We are looking at the meaning of the following terms. One is agriculture. So Alvin, how do we define agriculture? What is agriculture?
Agriculture can be defined as the cultivation of crops and beekeeping.
Very good. So we can define it as the cultivation of crops. We said initially it involved cultivation of animal husbandry, which we can call in other times animal keeping or animal rearing, including even beekeeping. So in simple terms, we can talk of agriculture as the cultivation of crops and rearing of animals. Good. So next, so we define Neolithic period. So this one we had already defined. So let me have a random person define it apart from those who have raised their hands. Matilda, today you are very quiet. Yes. Define for us a Neolithic period. Matilda, are you there? Matilda. Ephraim, yes. Ephraim.
This is the period when
Neolithic period.
This is the period when man began domesticating plants and animals.
The period when man started growing crops or rearing animals, or like Ephraim has said, the period when man started domesticating plants and animals. Mburu defined for us Neolithic period, not Neolithic period, agrarian system.
Agrarian system is the growing of crops and domestication of livestock.
So it is just as simple as defining agriculture. So here we say it is the system of growing crops and domestication or the rearing of animals. Very good. Elvis, define for us agrarian revolution. Elvis, yes.
The agrarian revolution is the rapid changes in the field of agriculture.
The rapid changes in the field of agriculture or the rapid changes in the field of growing crops and rearing of animals. Very good. So now that we've said that agriculture is the growing of crops and rearing of animals, in the Stone Age period, we've discussed that man used to hunt and gather. So at some point in our class discussion, we looked at the disadvantages of hunting and gathering as an economic activities. We talked about points like it was tiresome. We talked about points like a man would gather poisonous fruits and roots. We talked about it was difficult to spot the animals or locate the animals. It needed many people to maybe conduct the hunting activity, and we gave several other disadvantages of hunting and gathering as an economic activity that was done by man. So now that takes us to our question. Why do you think, what are the reasons as to why? What are the reasons as to why man moved from hunting and gathering and started growing crops? Because our question is talking about 3 reasons that necessitated man to start domestication of plants and animals. So the question is basically asking us, which are these reasons as to why man moved from hunting and gathering and then started producing his own food, or started growing crops and rearing of animals? And here, I can see some hands are up. Just give me a few minutes, then we get to answer that question, because I want to clarify something, because I noted when I was marking this question in the exam, some of us, instead of giving reasons as to why man started agriculture, there are those of us who gave the disadvantages of hunting and gathering as an economic activity. So please take note, distinguish. In our class discussion, we looked at, after defining these terms, then we went and looked at why is it that man moved from hunting and gathering to food production? So that was basically our question. Why did man start growing crops and animals? Of course, some of the disadvantages of hunting and gathering might fall under reasons why man started agriculture, but not all. In fact, it is not all of those answers can fall under reasons why, because some of those disadvantages, man overcame them, or man could overcome them. Are we together? Are we together?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, so please let's, in future, because that is where some of us lost marks. In future, let's distinguish between disadvantages of hunting and gathering as an economic activity and reasons why man started growing crops and rearing animals. And I remember in class we discussed and we were keen on distinguishing between the two, but seemingly some of us forgot. So please let's not have a repeat of that. So what were the reasons why man started agriculture? What were the reasons why man started agriculture? And we've said these are basically reasons why, or reasons why man moved from hunting and gathering and started producing his own food. And please take note of that, because this time round, the examiner asks factors that necessitated man to start domesticating of plants and animals. The next time the examiner can ask reasons why man moved from hunting and gathering to food production. So please take note that that is one and the same things. So to start us off, let's have Edwin, yes.
The natural environment would not provide adequate food because of the increasing population.
Very good. So increased population. So with increased population, then the environment could not provide adequate food. So from the charts, I can see Matilu is saying, my mic had a problem. It's solved. Okay, Matilu, we forgive you for that. Then Godwin's is talking about not reliable climate change, which led to food shortage. So the climate change, yes, climatic changes. So these ones, climatic changes caused what we call drought or aridity. So that could not sustain the lives of early man. Very good. Mburu, yes. Mburu.
Competition for food developed among human beings and between animals. This was a result in inadequate food. So he had to start new methods of livelihood.
Very good. So we had competition between human beings and among animals themselves. So if we take an example of an antelope or a gazelle, a lion wanted to hunt the same gazelle kingdom. A lion and probably a cheetah would want to hunt the same gazelle. Then the human beings again would have different people wanting to hunt the same animals. So we have competition between and among animals and human beings. Very good.
Increased natural calamities such as bushfires and floods destroyed and destroyed vegetation and drove away wild.
So we have increased calamities such as bush floods. So these ones destroyed plant life and also drove away the animals. Very good. Elvis, your hand was up. Another answer? So remember, we also have hunting and gathering had become increasingly tiresome. Remember in the disadvantages, we said it was difficult to spot the animals. You'll have to walk for long to get an animal to hunt or fruits to gather. So it was becoming tiresome. So man thought it was high time. Man moved from hunting to something else. So man started agriculture. Any other? Godwins, any other? Godwins.
Yes, there's scarcity of prey due to overhunting because both man and wild animals were hunting the same kind of animals.
Very good. So the hunting grounds became exhausted. Why did they become exhausted? Because of overhunting. Good. Edwin, I can see your hand is still up.
Is it true to say that, can we say that animals, no, that the hunting was an insecure source of food because sometimes we would not hunt?
Already we've said it was becoming tiresome. And why was it becoming tiresome? Because sometimes man would go hunt and not come back with anything. So that is still already catered there. And also we talked about overhunting. So with overhunting, it means that now the food was not enough. And man had to seek alternative because the hunting grounds had become exhausted. So how are you doing?
Yes.
Okay. So factors that necessitated man to start domesticating of plants and animals. We have competition for wild food sources between human beings and animals, competition for food between and among human beings and animals. Then hunting and gathering became increasingly tiresome. Then we have climatic changes as drought threatened plants and animal life. So climatic changes such as drought and aridity threatened plants and animal life. You know what happens whenever there is drought. Then natural calamities such as floods and bushfire, calamities such as animals, then increased human population, hence the natural environment could not provide adequate food, increased human population, hence the natural environment could not provide adequate food. Then we have overhunting, which led to exhaustion of hunting grounds. Then as your last point, you can talk about some plants and animals had economic value. So this question has come before in KCSE. So we marked strictly as per what the KCSE marking scheme provided. So those were the correct answers as per the marking scheme. So part B of the question, discuss 6 factors that have caused food shortage in Africa. Part of our discussion on agriculture, we talked about the food situation. So allow me to share the screen. So we talked about as our, I think, last subtopic in terms of agriculture, we looked at food situation in Africa and the rest of the third world. So allow me just to write that subtopic. Food situation in Africa and the rest of the third world. Food situation in Africa and the rest of the third world. So here we started by discussing what do we mean by third world countries. And we said that these are countries that belong to Africa, Asia, and we also talked about, I think, South and South America. Africa, Asia, and South America. Caesar, yes.
Madam, could you say that it is not the whole of Asia? Because I read in a book, it says part of Asia.
But you see, even when we talk about Africa, Caesar, even when we talk about Africa,
yes.
Look at South Africa is still considered a third world country, Sindio. But where can we place South Africa together with Kenya?
No.
In terms of development? It is far much ahead. But when we look at third world countries, we still consider South Africa as a third world country because we cannot categorize it as a what? As a first world country. The same to Asia. There are certain parts of Asia that are far much developed. But if we look at the Asia as a continent, then based on maybe the percentage, if you ask me, we cannot say that Asia is developed because just like we cannot single out South Africa and say now that it is more developed than most of the African countries, then we don't categorize it as a third world country. We still categorize it as a third world country. Remember, we say if we were to have first world, then we have second world, then there are those countries that we would move into the second world countries if we were to have that. But for the purpose of our discussion, we only have the first world countries, and then we have the third world countries, or rather we have the developed and the and those that are less developed. Caesar, sawa?
Yes, madam, thank you.
Edwin? Edwin, yes.
For example, if a question comes in the exam that define a third world country, will you say that a third world country are the countries that are in Africa and South America, like that?
Because we talked about, there we are using it for, but we looked at characteristics. So what did we give as the characteristics of third world countries?
They have a weak economy.
So majorly you'll find that if you ask me, I think the examiner would ask us more over the characteristics of third world countries. But if we are asked to define third world countries, then we can talk about these are countries that are found in Africa, Asia, and is it South America or Latin America?
South America.
I think South America, yes, South America. So which are the characteristics? We say they have weak economies, what else do they have?
Fluctuating prices.
Prices fluctuate. What else do they have?
A fragile food situation.
We can talk of poverty, India. Poverty in these countries. What else?
Less technological development.
Less technological developments, and we can also talk about huge debts. What is our current debt as a country? What is our current debt?
8.2 trillion.
What is our current debt? 8.2
trillion.
8.2 trillion.
Yeah, around there.
Around there. So that is enough to, if we are to divide it amongst ourselves in class, how much would each person get? Mathematicians, quickly calculate for us that.
Olo.
Where are the Olympiads?
Olo.
Olo.
Who is the great mathematician?
Probably 10 million. Google. 20 million.
20 million.
Yes.
Okay, so Alan, what would you do with 20 million? Yes, Alan. What would you do with 20 million? Good car. So you start by paying tithe to God. Okay. So allow me to pass through situation in Africa. We looked at what are third world countries. We gave their characteristics. Then we now went to look at causes of food shortage in Africa. We also looked at possible solution to the problem of food shortage in Africa. And finally, we discussed the steps that our Kenyan government has taken to solve the problem of food shortage. So factors that have caused food shortage in Africa, one is high population rate. We have high population growth rate compared to the amount of food being produced. In Kenya, what is our number currently as per the last census? How many are we? 47 million, huh? So we are talking about high population growth rate compared to the amount of food produced. Then desertification or encroachment of desert conditions. Desertification or encroachment of desert conditions. So we have that policy that plant what? Cut one tree, plant how many?
2.
How many do you plant? 2. So then we have poverty or high levels of poverty. So we have high levels of poverty. Research says that most of the people in the developed countries live below $1 a day. So if you are to live below $1 a day, how much would you be spending in a day?
100 shillings.
100 shillings, huh? So it's saying that is what most of the people in the developed countries live by. So that makes food shortage a reality because you cannot afford to buy. Then we have overemphasis on production of cash crops. So most people in their shambas, instead of planting food crops so that we can have food to eat, they have planted cash crops. And there's always this debate whether where are the amerus, whether mira is a cash crop or is a drug. So where do we categorize mira? A cash crop or a drug? What is mira? A cash crop or a drug?
It's a cash crop.
Cash crop.
Nick, is a cash crop?
Yes.
Not a drug. Matilda is saying is a cash crop.
It's a cash crop.
So the Ameru, like we've always said, they'll tell you it is a cash crop that, but most of us categorize mira as a drug. And have you seen on the road how those vehicles are driven? The ones carrying mira.
Yes.
Yes.
The other day I saw someone saying there are some crops that perish, are easily perishable or are more perishable compared to mira, but they are not driven that fast as fast as the way mira vehicles are driven, which I think should not be the case. Those vehicles should be driven in the correct way. So next is rural-urban migration, depriving rural areas of labor force. So most people have moved from the rural areas to the urban areas. Then political instability, as witnessed in some countries. An example, we have the Democratic Republic of Congo, we have Sudan. Then poor transport infrastructure, hampering distribution of food. And there in our class discussion, we said you need to take note, how does poor transportation hamper distribution of food? Because you can get that as a separate question. Then poor economic planning by the governments. If you look at the budget, if you look at what is given more compared to agriculture, then you will find that at times agriculture is not really put as a priority in terms of funds, and that one is the backbone of our economy as a country. Then we have poor land tenure system, for example, communal land ownership. Then we have huge foreign debts. We've just stated how much our debt is, and remember the other day Kenyans were signing a petition. Kenyans were signing a petition requesting the IMF not to give Kenyans loans anymore. Then HIV/AIDS pandemic has led to deaths of those in prime and productive years. So those ones who would have been providing food and producing food have died due to the HIV pandemic. Then neglect of indigenous or drought-resistant crops. People no longer plant cassavas. They no longer plant, which are the other ones? The drought-resistant crops. Which are the other drought-resistant crops?
Millet.
Millet, sorghum. Then we have insufficient funds to promote agricultural activities. Insufficient funds to promote agricultural activities. So basically, those are the causes of food shortage. Then, of course, I've said, please find time, and that will form part of your assignment. Read and write on the possible solutions to the problems of food shortage in Africa and the rest of the third world, and also the steps that our Kenyan government has taken to solve the problem of food shortage. So anyone with a question up to that point, so that we can look at the last question? Anyone with a question up to that point? So we move to our last question, and that is identify 5 subgroups of the Mijikenda. So this one comes from the topic, the people of Kenya up to the 19th century. Remember, under that we discussed the origin of the communities, that is the Bantus, the Nilotes, and the Kushites. Then we looked at their dispersal point and their settlement areas. Then we discussed communities that belong to the various groups. Then we looked at reasons for their migration and results of their migration. And this year KCSE, question 18A was asking, identify 5 communities that belong to the plain Nilotes. So how many would have gotten that question? Everyone, Cindy?
Yeah.
Everyone, huh? 5 communities that belong to the plain Nilotes. That candidates were asked to describe the political organization of the Agikuyu. So you can see how question 18 was very simple. I'm sure all of us would have answered that question, right or wrong?
Right.
Huh?
Right.
Right. Huh? So that was the question actually. Question 18A was identify 5 communities that belong to the plain Nilotes. Question 18B was describe the political organization of the Agikuyu. So I'm sure if it were you, majority would have just been smiling. Huh? Cindy?
Yeah.
Yes. So question 22A was identify 5 subgroups of the Mijikenda, and just allow me to see from the charts. We have Charles says Chonyi, Rabai. Brian says Chonyi, Jibana, Giriama, Kambe, Ribe, Rabai, Duruma, and Digo. So the subgroups, remember we looked at the groups of the Bantus, and we say we have the Western Bantus. Then we said we have the coastal Bantus. So the coastal Bantus, we divided them into the Taita, the Pokomo, and the Mijikenda. So the question was asking the subgroups of the Mijikenda. Some of us were giving, this question was well done. Majority scored everything. But there are those of us who were giving, instead of giving the subgroups of the Mijikenda, they were giving the coastal Bantu. There are those who are talking about the Taita. There are those who are talking about the Pokomo. So please take note. The coastal Bantus, we have the Pokomo, the Taita, and the Mijikenda. Then we have the 9 subgroups of the Mijikenda. So allow me to take us through the subgroups of the Mijikenda. We have 1, the Digo, the Duruma, the Rabai, the Ribe, the Kambe, the Jibana, the Giriama, Chonyi, and the Kauma. So those of us who wrote Taita and Pokomo, please take note. Those ones are the types of, or the subgroups of the coastal Bantus. Are we clear there? Are we clear there?
Yes.
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 So question 22B, and that was our last question in the exam. Explain 5 results of the Cushitic migration into Kenya. 5 results of Cushitic migration into Kenya. So remember, young men, that we said in discussing the people of Kenya, then we must look at the reasons for their migration and the results of their migration, So some of us, again, in this question, we went wrong. And why did we go wrong? Instead of discussing the results of migration, we gave the reasons of migration. And that's why I keep on insisting, young men, please, 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 during the exam, let's not get overexcited. When you see the question is simple, let us read the question a number of times before we put down our answers. So I believe some very simple question went ahead and gave reasons for migration instead of results. So let us be careful on that. Sasa, young men.
Yes.
Are we together? So allow me, because of time, allow me to take us through the results of Cushitic migration into Kenya. And again, this is a question that has come before in KCSE. It was there, I think, in 2005. So 1 is that population increased in the areas the Kushites settled. And for me, I thought this was a very simple question when I saw it in terms of how we are discussing in class. Remember the analogy we had used in our class discussion when the benchmarkers come to visit our school, right?
Yes.
You people remember that
Yes.
analogy? So I expected all of us to apply the same analogy in answering this particular question. So one is population increased in the areas the Kushites settled, then increased intercommunity warfare, especially between the Oromo and the Somali, increased intercommunity warfare, especially between the Oromo and the Somali, intermarriages between Kushites and other Kenyan communities, intermarriages between Kushites and other Kenyan communities, such as Pokomo and the Borana, they intermarried. Then intensification of trade activities as the Kushites traded with the Samburu and the Maasai. Intensification of trading activities as the Kushites traded with the Samburu and the Maasai. Then cultural exchange or borrowing, cultural exchange or borrowing as the Bantu adopted the aid-set system from the Kushites. So some of us were splitting that question. There are those of us who are saying point number one, they adapted, the Bantu adapted the practice of circumcision from the Kushites. Then point number two, they say the Bantus adapted the aid-set system. So please take note, that is one point. We are talking about cultural exchange or cultural borrowing. Then we go ahead and give examples of what they borrowed. So we don't give those examples as different points. So there are those of us who lost marks because of that. So please take note. Then displacement of communities or population redistribution. And again, there are those who split population redistribution and displacement. And we had agreed in class that once people are displaced, then the population is redistributed. So we cannot give that as two different points. So displacement of communities or population redistribution as Oromo pushed the Eastern Bantu from Shungwaya, plus any other relevant point that you gave, you still scored. So that was our paper. And I think you can bear me witness that it was a paper that you could have easily scored all the marks. So like I said at the beginning of our revision that there's one of us who scored everything, and that was good, 100%. So we'll clap for him. No, we'll not mention names. We said we want people to receive their results expecting to be the ones who scored 100.
Yes.
Yes. So we can clap for him. Then we'll once we know him, then we'll reward him. Sindio? Are we together?
Yes.
Yes. So let me say thank you. Let me say thank you, young men, for being attentive and very disciplined during the lesson. And thank you so much for attending the lesson. May God bless you and be with you. So let me leave you so that you can take some rest and prepare for the next lesson. So thank you so much, boys, and may God bless you and keep safe.
Yes.
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 So I can see Charles says, God, is it God bless? You too. So thank you so much, and I hope you enjoyed the lesson. Have a blessed day.
Ciao.
Thank you, Mwalimu.
Bye. Okay, bye-bye and have a good day. Nick, I can see your hand is up. Yes, before we leave.
Yes, on Nick. The issue about the notes. So how are we supposed to access the class notes, or we can make our notes from the books?
There are those pamphlets are given. Let's see. I'll see if, because I don't have a soft copy or who has them? Matilu. Okay, so let me, I'll discuss with your class teacher and we'll see how you can access them. Sawa.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Okay. Bye, good people.
Bye.
Question. How many faking they streams? Getting they plays from machines. I can see behind the smoke and mirrors, niggas ain't really big as they seem. I never say anything. Everybody got their thing. Some niggas make millions, other niggas make memes. I'm on the money routine. You know what the outcome will be. I'm betting 1,000 just got to the point that these rappers don't even like rapping with me. Focus to my nigga 21 Savage just hit me and told me to send me. Before it all ends, nigga, how much money you got? A lot. How many problems you got? A lot. How many people that doubted? A lot. Left you out to ride? A lot. How many pray that you flop? A lot. And niggas you shot? A lot. How many times did you ride? A lot. How many niggas that died? A lot. How many times did you cheat? A lot. How many times did you lie? A lot. How many times did she leave? A lot. How many times did she cry? A lot. How many chances she done gave you?